If you're looking back on your life, what is a big regret that you have that taught you a valuable lesson?
Where would I be? What could I have done if I had a supportive rather than violent and destructive upbringing? I got a 4-year scholarship, and my parents intercepted that letter and burnt it. I found out when I was 52 years old. I was their property. My father told me that, and I thought I will never be that person.
Where do you think people go wrong then?
Most women give up. What is your most precious possession? It's time. How are you going to use that?
In this video, I'll be interviewing Diane Gilman, an 80-year-old self-made millionaire, best known as the Jean Queen, on a 20-year-long tele-retail show. She goes on to design jeans for the likes of Cher, Jimi Hendrix, and Jim Morrison. Diane's story is full of ups and downs, and is truly one of the most wisdom-filled journeys I've ever listened to. You are going to learn a lot of interesting life advice from this conversation. How old are you?
79 and a half years old. It's easier just to say I'm almost 80. More impressive, decade, and less painful when I actually turn 80.
What does it feel like to be almost 80?
Freaky. Amazing. I mean, my God, I've been here almost a century. So I can feel my body needing extra help, kind of winding down. I just made all sorts of plans to eat better, which I'm actually going forward with. I want to treat my body like it's an antique Thunderbird or something. You know, you can't take it out on the highway too much, but you also can't just give it regular gas. You have to just see it as a vehicle of privilege. And it's amazing to look back. You know, so many milestones in my career, so many things I dreamt about for decade after decade finally came true. And, very fulfilling, really.
When you wake up and you look in the mirror, or just on a daily basis, you look in the mirror, do you look back in the reflection and are like, whoa, time has passed?
No, I actually have taken pretty good care of myself, except for about 4 decades when I was a little bit wild. And I like to live in the present. So I like to see myself in the present. And if you're going to play that comparison game, you are going to mutilate your peace of mind. So I think I'm doing pretty well for 80.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people... Oh, go ahead.
In context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of people don't feel the way that you feel at 80. Like maybe they feel a bit worse, or they're kind of just chugging along.
Well, when I see these stupid commercials like on TV, like, oh, I'm getting better every year, that is so much BS. Okay, you're not getting, maybe how you interpolate life around you is getting more finite and detailed and better, but don't make remarks like that, because your body is not getting better. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges, is setting standards for yourself that nobody sets. They just sort of expect you to be quiet or be gone by this period of life. And yeah, I'm not planning on either of those for a while.
What would you say you've done in your life to get to this point and feel the way that you feel?
I was, I think, a very unique child. I was worried and very conscious of growing old at a really young age, like 4 or 5, because my parents, I was born in 1945 to a mother that was 45 and a father that was almost 50. And that was unheard of as an only child in that period. So I watched my parents have a series of health problems that were attached to growing older, and there weren't a lot of solutions back then, especially for a female growing older. And so I formed opinions that I wasn't going to age the way they aged. I wasn't going to do it. I was going to figure out a different way, a better way. And if I had to put it into terms I would use today, a higher vibrational way, and try not to cave into the beliefs and the health challenges of that tsunami, perpetual age tsunami, old age.
Where do you think people go wrong then in that case?
Attitude. I think it's interesting. I could have gotten breast cancer at any time in my life. I got it at the very pinnacle of my career, 72, which is odd enough in the fashion and entertainment industry to be peaking at 72, but it was pretty great. And it gave me a different perspective. When I came out of it, I realized, because my surgeon was so bright and just said, you lead the most aggravating life. You work like 28 hours a day. You're always in an airplane. You're always at someone else's mercy. It's like being a trained dog act. It's perform, perform, perform. And I took those words to heart. And I came out of cancer, got back on air, and thought, does this make your heart beat fast anymore? Do you love this the way you used to? Well, I will always love fashion design, but my career, which was in tele-retail, was aging out itself on cable TV. And it was getting to the point where no matter who you were, and I was one of the 3 top performers of all tele-retail internationally, you weren't getting the customers back again because they were watching cable TV. So I have a personality that will always blame myself for everything. Oh, I should have done it better. Oh, I should have done it differently. Oh, I could have tried harder. And I just thought, I don't want to put myself through it. Plus, my product had always been for older women, about older women, and I thought, I want to broaden the subject beyond fashion.
I'll circle back into that, but let's go into the past. So you're born in 1945. You said when you were born, your parents were 45 and 50.
Yeah.
What was your childhood like? If someone is listening to you and watching you right now and they've never heard of you, they don't know you, and in order to understand who you are today, what do we need to learn about before?
My childhood was pretty rough. I came from the outer trappings of a middle-class home, but my parents had both been driven pretty crazy by the Depression of 1929, and I will say my mother was a debutante in Portland, Maine, so I mean, we're not talking about a debutante in New York or Paris, but well off, lived in a mansion, almost a square block, and when the Depression hit, they lost everything in the mansion, became a transient boarding house. She became the maid. My grandmother became the cook, and my grandfather became the super. And that's where she met my father. He was transient, no job, because of the Depression. So their lives were always shadowed by money, the lack of money, having money. So, I was the poor little rich girl that grew up in the back of a Cadillac but was miserable, and a lot of violence in the house. And then I was born this way. It sounds like Lady Gaga, but I didn't want to get married. I didn't even play with baby dolls. I just wanted to make clothes for them. I, from a very young age, said I want to be a fashion designer, and there almost was no fashion designer. The only female fashion designers were Coco Chanel and Schiaparelli, and they were in Paris, and that was not going to happen. And my parents thought I was deranged. And so there were constant fights going on about going to fashion school. And I just give you an example. So when I was 17, because I also was really good at languages, my high school teacher knew I loved fashion, knew I loved French, knew I loved France. And he applied for me to the Sorbonne, and I got a 4-year scholarship. And my parents intercepted that letter and burnt it. I found out when I was 52 years old.
Wow.
I could have had a totally different life.
How did you find that out?
My mother, when my father passed away, I left home for 35 years. I thought it was just going to be better for all of us. Otherwise, we were going to kill one another arguing. I came home for the funeral back to Maine. And I was, at that time, just getting on TV and pretty successful in America. I was in every department store with my name up on the wall. And my cousin said, "Hey, did you ever tell Diane she got a 4-year scholarship to the Sorbonne?" I didn't know any of my relatives. I mean, I ran away from home as a teenager, never went back. And my mother said, "No." I mean, my mother, they just thought that was the right way to do it. I was their property. My father told me that, and they could do what they wanted with their properties. So I struck out on my own pretty early in life.
What prompted you to leave home? And how old were you at that time?
I was 17 and a half. Every school I got into, there was an art school, or my parents refused to fund me. They said college for women was just to go find a husband, and UCLA was my best bet for getting married. I had my own life to live. I was a dream child for the right set of parents. I knew what I wanted to do. I worked from the time I was 11 years old in a local boutique, made my own money to spend on my own stuff. And they were just terrified by me. So my cousin Nancy was the perfect child. She went to school, freshman at whatever college she was at, found a pre-med student, was engaged immediately, had 7 children, and was a receptionist in his office. And it was always, "Your cousin Nancy." And I thought, well, good for Nancy, but, here I am. And at some point I got on TV and shot straight up, and there was no appreciation of me. I wasn't what they wanted me to be. That was a big problem. And even to the end, when we were sitting at my father's memorial service, and someone said, "Aren't you so proud of your daughter?" And my mother's remark was, "She should have married a Jewish doctor." That's it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the right move to leave home. We just didn't. We weren't, I don't know who chose who and whatever spiritual arena, but I guess we were there to test one another, but we certainly were not there to appreciate one another.
How does that make you feel? Like, if you're thinking back on all those moments? I mean, as I'm imagining for myself too, that'd be very frustrating.
It makes me angry. I feel like, where would I be? What could I have done if I had a supportive rather than violent and destructive upbringing? But I'll never find out, and I'm not really a woulda, shoulda, coulda kind of girl, so I don't dwell on it.
How did that manifest, or did it manifest in other aspects of your life?
I think it made me fight for everything. I think that I had to leave home with like a quarter in my pocket. I had no money. I had no ties to anything in the fashion business. But I was always on the periphery of rock and roll. And so I met Cher and made clothes for her, and Anne Margaret and made clothes for her, and the Jefferson Airplane and Jimi Hendrix. And yeah, I would say youth was not wasted on me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Okay, so again, for the people who don't know you and don't know what you're about, I mean, we know now you're a fashion designer, but tell us how that got started, because it got started at UCLA, if I'm not mistaken.
It only started at UCLA because I made a deal with my parents that I would go there, but I wouldn't live at home. So I lived in a sorority. So bottom line was, I met somebody and made friends with them whose boyfriend was Jim Morrison of The Doors. And then we got together, a girls collective, and opened a boutique called I'm a Hog for You, Baby. Because we researched that this was the first rock and roll song ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was across the street from Katz's Delicatessen in LA, which is where all the stars came to eat destructive Jewish food. So one day a white Rolls Royce pulled up. There was no parking in front of Katz's, so they parked in front of our boutique. It was Sonny and Cher. She didn't want any food. He did. He went in. She came into the boutique and bought every dress.
Wow.
Every dress. And that started it. And then, you know, it was a different time. There were no filters. So you could, I mean, I was living in one of the canyons, like Topanga Canyon, and I go into the Canyon store, and there's David Crosby and Crosby, Stills and Nash, and they're buying wheat bread, and we strike up a conversation, and then they introduce me to Janis Joplin, and then I start hand painting denim for Janis Joplin. And so I wasn't really making any money. I've actually never been very materialistic. I wanted to hone my craft. I wanted so much to be an artist, and I knew design, fashion design, was my way to go. And I just self-funded myself and it took forever until I started making money. Okay, so then I followed the music scene up to San Francisco. And also I had known somebody, Jay Sebring, who got murdered by Charles Manson. And that was a final draw for me in LA. It was like, this place is crazy. So I moved up to San Francisco, followed the music scene. And then, of course, there was a serial killer up in San Francisco. That was so nuts. And eventually, I met somebody who lived in New York, and I bought an airline ticket. I only knew one person in New York, and just thought, the party's almost over here. Like Haight-Ashbury, it was all getting too druggy for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to be professional, and I'm already like 25, I considered that really old at that time, I've got to come to New York. I've got to come where the epicenter is. Mm-hmm. So I did. And nobody would hire me. I had no education at Fashion Institute. I had no ties to the industry, no family in the industry. So the only thing I could do was I got a night job at Max's Kansas City. And then I met Andy Warhol and his whole crowd and the factory. And then in the daytime, I got a job at Bloomingdale's, but the only opening they had was the old ladies' girdle department. Okay, but I read women's wear every day. And one day, I looked out and I see this woman, and she looks like the fashion coordinator of Bloomingdale's. And I came running over to her and I said, "Hi, I'm a designer, and I have a collection, and I'd really love to show it to you." And she was like, "Oh my God, not another one." Mm-hmm. So about 2 months later, she gave me an appointment. I harassed her, and I sewed everything myself. Everything was done by hand. And I showed it to her, and she went crazy and called the president of Bloomingdale's and got him downstairs to see it. And Abraham and Strauss, which at the time was a big department store in Brooklyn, and they bought $100,000 worth of clothing. And I burst out in tears, and she said, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "Well, I thought you were going to buy like 3 pieces. I don't have any money to produce this." And they funded everything and gave me every window of the store for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Ads like every day in the New York Times, centerfold ads. And I was on my way. Always underfunded. Always misunderstood as a single female making my way through a business world where women were not exactly appreciated. But I hung in there. And, you're the luckiest person in the world if you get to do something every day that you are truly in love with. And I was obsessed.
I have listened to more than 1,000 hours of life advice from older people, and I have learned tons of lessons, like not to have any regrets, to travel more, and to stop caring about what others think. And while all of that is nice to hear, how can you transform your life from not bad to great so that you don't wake up one day and wonder, what if? Our goal-setting journal is a fully guided journal based entirely off the more than 1,250 interviews we've conducted with people who are older and wiser and more successful. This goal-setting journal will walk you step by step through self-reflection, goal-setting, and goal tracking to figure your life out, to turn your dreams into goals, and then turn those goals into your reality. I've been building, using, and refining this journal for over 5 years, and it has helped thousands of members in our community take their life to the next level. For a short time, you will also get a 30-day money-back guarantee and over $500 of exclusive bonuses by clicking the link below and grabbing a copy while the offer still lasts. So there is literally zero harm in trying. I mean, the Bloomingdale's thing is a huge break. Huge break. What was it about them, you think? What was it about the whole situation? Why you, of all the pitches they keep getting, why do you think that yours was so impactful?
I think that when I designed, I always designed from the heart. And I think that heart energy is very different from commercialism. Believe me, there were a million ups and downs. And there were a lot of very powerful guys who knocked me off and copied what I did, and I couldn't make that go away. But I stuck with it. I mean, this was my destiny. I had no confusion about that at all.
But when you say it was with your heart, you think most people are not designing or making things with their heart?
Yeah, I do. I think most of them, I think it is very difficult as a artist, even a commercial artist, to bare your heart and soul.
Yeah.
Because if you're rejected, it's devastating. But I really, really started using all my inner resources when I designed the middle-aged jean for the TV customer at the age of 60. And then shot up into the stratosphere and was selling 2-3 million pairs of jeans a year on HSN, on TSV in Canada, on QVC globally all over the world. So it took me a long time to really get to the real me. But
so you had been doing it since UCLA, but you would say, if you're looking back on your whole career, that your biggest break or your like pinnacle is when you were 60.
Yeah, and I didn't even want to be on television. I just lost my name in a lawsuit, couldn't use it on a label. And one day, when I was about ready to kill myself and or go get a job waitressing somewhere, I got a phone call, and it was so bizarre. It was like, "Hi, is Diane there?" And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's a bill collector, because I was paying lawyers a fortune every month to try and save my name. And I said, "Yeah, who's calling?" And they said, "Oh, this is a talent scout at QVC. We wonder if you want to be on air, design a collection. And I said, well, you're a little late. I lost my name. I can't put it on a label. I can't even say it on TV. And she said, that's no problem. We have lots of people like you. We'll just call you Diane. And so I would have to say, almost all my life, I've also, along with the talent for design, had the talent to recognize extraordinary opportunity, which is a very important talent to have. So I thought, well, what do I have to lose here? And I did not like my image. I did not like myself in photographs. I never thought about being on television. I did it a couple of times, and then I thought, I think I could do this. And then I did it for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That it's interesting because I mean, I see a lot of people who want to get into things and they just want to be successful very fast. You know, and if they don't see the success right away, they think that they're a failure. They don't think it's worth it. Why not jump into something else? But I mean, you're looking back on your career and you would say your peak is 40 plus years after, about 40 years after we started.
Yeah, because I was always doing something I loved. And I realized I wasn't hitting that vein of gold. Something was missing there. Mm-hmm. I was always designing clothing that the public liked because I really had two peaks to my career. One was when I introduced washable silk to America. And one was when I introduced the middle-aged jean to America through television, QVC and HSN. I never wanted to wear the washable silk. That wasn't me. I did a really good job designing it. I hand painted all the prints. It was huge business. But when I turned 60 and I'd been a rock and roll chick, I had been a blue jean baby, and there was no jean out there that was going to fit my pudgy middle-aged body, I got really incensed. And I designed a jean for me, and I started wearing it every day. I wasn't doing jeans for a collection. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. If I love this jean this much, wouldn't millions of women love it? Isn't that what I'm about? Forecasting what women want before they even know they want it or think it's possible. So we had just gotten a female CEO at HSN, very hip, and she had been there at the inception of and helped develop polo jeans for Ralph Lauren. And so I thought, okay, she's going to understand jeans. I had literally never made professionally a jean in my life. I just decorated all these jeans for rock and roll stars. And so I remember when she was introducing herself to everybody, she said, so tell me, what do you really want to do? And I said, I really want to sell middle-aged jeans on television. And she was like, oh, well, fitted bottoms have never sold on TV. I said, yeah, but I can do it because I'm going to wear it. So she said, okay. Yeah, but I didn't get prime time. I got 5 a.m. on a February freezing cold, really depressing February morning with a large-size host who was screaming at me before the show, if you fucking think I'm getting into a pair of jeans to be in front of the camera, you're out of your mind. We are having this screaming fit on one another, and then suddenly the lights go on. And it's like, hi, good morning. And we brought in 5,000 jeans, and we sold them out in 3 minutes.
Of that first show?
Yeah. Wow. And even then, nobody believed in me. I've always had to pitch myself, and I'm the worst pitch artist in the world. I've always had to have total confidence and belief in myself. when I just wish other people would do it for me. But then I went back to my partner, who was a guy, and said, this is going to be huge. And he said, don't be ridiculous. That middle-aged women are not going to want to wear a jean. This was just a fluke. Mm-hmm. I said, no, it wasn't. And actually, at retail, probably into the second year, we started hitting very close to $100 million at retail. It was huge. Huge. And they have this thing called a Today Special on TV, and that's supposed to be the value of the day. Most people do, maybe if they're really successful, 6 a year, 7 a year. I was doing like 75 a year. I would do one on a Wednesday, and they'd say, hey, can you come back on Saturday and do another one?
Wow.
And yeah.
What was it about these shows that made it so successful?
First of all, I loved the product. I lived in the product every day of my life.
But why?
But no, everybody ignored my customer. They all ignored a middle-aged woman. And I thought, I'm going to make her feel sexy again. I'm going to make her reconnected to her youth. When you think about your favorite pair of jeans as a woman, you think about first date with your boyfriend and your husband, first child, vacation, first resort, first Europe trip, first this, first that. And they're all happy thoughts. And it made women happy again. And it gave them confidence in themselves, because that middle-age crisis is no joke. It gave them back them. The essence of them. And I understood it all because it gave it all back to me.
So you're never selling the jeans?
I'm just selling the philosophy. I sold a philosophy of regaining a bit of your youth and happiness.
Did you know you were doing that at the time, or did you know that later? Is that a strategy?
It took a, no, it is not a strategy.
Because that's every marketer says to do that, but
you don't have a script for this. You have no script. You're going out there and just talking. And I think one of my biggest impediments were the hosts didn't get it. They wanted to, it's purple, it comes in 10 sizes, here's the
explaining the feature, and you're explaining
it. Yeah, they don't want to talk about it on an emotional basis. But I wanted to talk about it and create a female community. And so that is, it all happened organically, really. But I owned it. So I became one of the 3 top performers of all times in tele-retail. One of them was the Vitamin King, Andrew Lessman, and one of them was the Spin Mop Queen, Joy Mangano, and then there was me. And we were the 3 tripod top financial supports for the network.
What's interesting is that your origin for it is just how you wanted to use it, and you were wearing it.
And what made sense to me. It made terrific sense to me. And everybody has enough money for a pair of jeans, and everybody wants one in a closet. But when you hit a certain age and you are shut off from not wearing what was your representative style, you feel old. I made women feel young again, relevant again. Yeah, it was a social movement kind of moment in fashion.
When I think of why I do this, because I used to work at a bank and I used to work in finance. Yeah, that was my earlier years. Yeah. I'm still in early years, I would say. But yeah, I started doing this because for 5 years before, I had been online looking up like 60-year-olds, 80-year-olds. What do you wish you knew when you were younger? What do you wish you did more of? What were your biggest regrets? And it was something that really helped me in my life. And I looked at the world and was like, you only see this on Reddit every now and then. but there's no one actually talking about it and explaining it.
Right, which is why I retired at 78, but at the age of 72, I had to take a year off for breast cancer. And when I came back, I had a very different attitude. And I thought, okay, life is so finite, life is so fragile, life is such a privilege. Is this really what you want to do for the rest of your life? And I thought, no, I've done it for 30 years. I'm really good at it, and I could stay forever doing it, but I want to get back to something new that's a challenge. And I want to encompass baby boomers, my generation, and the generation right below, but more broad subjects. And I thought, well, what are you good at? Hopefully, I'm good at talking. And that's how I decided to retire from tele-retail. Wasn't easy. It was a really tough decision. But while I was still number one at the top, and try something challenging. I felt part of the key to successful aging was to constantly keep yourself challenged.
Again, like you wore the jeans that you were selling. The journal I was telling you about before, this journal I've been using personally for 7 years. And after 4 years, I was like, this could be an interesting product because it helped me a lot. I think this could help a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like the perfect kind of product market fit because you've been using it, you believe in it. And if you believe in it,
and it works for you.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, and you appreciate it. So hopefully with my podcasts, I talk about all aspects of aging, mostly for females, and give them hope. Everybody today needs some light and needs some hope. And, I had a lot of experiences during my year and a half with breast cancer. I don't ever look back on it as shaded or dark. I look back on the whole thing as a spiritual reset and very positive.
But you get breast cancer at 72.
Yeah.
That's, like you're saying, the height of your career.
Yeah.
What does it feel like in the moment? I know you're talking about it in retrospect.
I said to myself, well, I'm alone. And my life partner, died from cancer. So that was not a good viewpoint for me. And I remember coming home from the diagnosis and I said, okay, this is not a dress rehearsal. You are not a diva in their world. By that time, I was treated like I was a genius and I was traveling first class around the world and I was expected to be very star driven. And I realized I was going to have to go through a lot of stuff I didn't want to go through. And that nobody likes a cranky, bitter old lady. So I was going to have to be the best me I could be. And I had, if you've ever had one of those really real dreams or a dream where somebody close to you passed on and came back to you through a dream, and it's a very different kind of dream than your ordinary dream after eating a pint of ice cream at night. So I thought, I'm never going to sleep. It's the night before chemo, my first chemo treatment, which terrified me. I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning, well rested, and I had had a dream that I was in my little beige VW. I love that car, my Bug, and I was driving down a wilderness road that wasn't even paved. And it had all these rocks, and it was very bumpy, and I don't know what I was doing there. I just knew I had to get someplace. really fast, like I had to. So I'm driving along and nothing but wilderness, side to side. And suddenly I come up against this needlepoint mountain that's literally horizontal, just straight up. And I think, I've got to get around this. I need to get to the other side. And I back up and I gun the engine and I go a little bit up and slide down. Gun the engine again, go a little bit further and slide down. And then I realized I'm never going to get up that way because even if I got up to the needlepoint top, I would just tip over and crash down the other side. What am I going to do? And suddenly, I open the door. I get out of the little VW bug, and I turn into a giant. And the needlepoint mountain is just a big rock that I easily step over. And I realized that I was going to have to spiritually become my bigger self, my best me, to get through this and get through it alone.
Yeah.
And that it was a gift from the spirit world that I had this dream and explaining it to me. And from then on, I was fine. I knew I was not going to die. I knew I was going to come out healthy. And I knew that I was meant to teach others how to have a different attitude, not as a victim, not as sad, but as somebody who actually, and believe me, nothing could have stopped me. So cancer was about the only thing that could stop me, or I would just have barreled through life that way. Not happy, always straining myself, but it's a privilege if you get a different perspective. And you really start to appreciate every minute of your life and realize it's a gift.
Yeah.
And so,
do you think most people are stuck in the buggy?
oh yeah. And just, I call them head knockers. They just keep knocking their head against the mountain. And you can't get around it. It's too broad, and you can't get up and over it. It's too high. So that was, I never questioned that dream. I just thought that dream was given to me. Yeah. And do with it what you want, but that's what I got out of it.
How do you become the giant, in your opinion? I know all you did in the dream was just get out of the car, but in theory,
I think you have to really, really want a solution to life. Like what I would say about being almost 80 is don't expect it to be 60 or 50. It is its own particular territory, and you're going to have to find a way to live that and live up to the challenges, or you don't want to be here. It's not easy. Absolutely not. But I started to just change my whole perspective. And what could I do that wasn't so physical anymore? Because TV was really physical, to travel and write books. So I've written 3 books since then. That's part of being the giant too. Just constantly finding the ways to cope and to perform the best you can in the moment. And I realized that these were also years where it was very important for me to lay down my legacy, because I think about things and act them out in a rather unique way. And so it was important for me to give as much light, and I'll say it again, hope, to my generation of females who are greatly underappreciated, and let them know that there's great things that are still in store for you. Most women, and we're trained that way too, give up somewhere towards the end of middle age. But if you're going to live this long and go through what you need to go through to be 80 or 90, or one of my good friends, Iris Apfel, just passed last year at 102.
Oh,
You got to appreciate the territory and be truthful about it to yourself.
yeah. I would say for the people that are head knockers, the questions that they might need to ask is, who am I and what do I want?
What do you want? What do you want out of this part of your life?
Mm-hmm.
And you can be honest to yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody else, but be honest to yourself. And you may not want to do anything. You may want to cruise. I don't know, but you may want to keep a journal. You may. I mean, I've made so many changes in my life. Like I just recently, when I turned 79, realized, no, Diane, you cannot eat half a pound of bacon for dinner as your protein. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get a grip on our diet. Just things like that. I mean, just treasuring your body and your mobility and the fact that your brain is still questing and works. So this is such a pretty journal.
This is the sections. Who am I and what do
I want? And that is so unique.
Yeah.
Because most people don't think they can even dare ask that question. What do I want? What do you mean, what do I want from old age? Well, I mean just that. Think about it this way. These are the most precious years. And if you have to say, what is your most precious possession? It's time. It is of the moment. How are you going to use that? How are you going to take care of that and nurture it and get something lasting out of it? And so from that point of view, I actually have the luxury at almost 80 of looking back, and it always cracks me up. I love it. Come on, I have a huge Leo ego. When people say, oh, Diane, you're a trailblazer and an icon in tele-retail and da-da-da. But what about now? What am I going to do now? Okay, I did that, and I love looking through that time tunnel.
Yeah.
But today is what I've got. Tomorrow, not promised to us, and the past is the past. So.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, there's so many people that are watching this that might be deviating from what they wanted to be when they were younger. Like, for example, you're a fashion designer. You wanted to be one from the beginning. You managed to do that. But maybe there's a lot of, and I'm not saying only, but there's a lot of fashion designers, like I'm talking metaphorically, who are accountants or teachers or whatnot, things that they didn't set out to be, that they might not ideally want to be, but that's the path they chose to take, maybe social pressures or necessity.
Or family pressures.
Or family pressures. And again, like when you and me say the what do I want question, really understanding that and going down that path, that's how you find happiness. But for the person who's deviated, how do you recommend that they get back on the right path?
Here's the trick. What you wanted to do at 20, you may not want to do at 60 or 70 or 80. I also was somebody, and I learned this from television, I was a storyteller. I sold my product because I told stories about it, adventures I had in my jeans, what my jeans brought me, the kind of happiness I experienced in them, the dreams I had for hand painting them like I had done for Janis Joplin or Jimi Hendrix. But every decade is freestanding and has its own sense of purpose. Find your purpose and love it and enjoy it. And if you can bring some happiness to people around you, I would like to think that I live to be a century, I live to be 100, and when I pass, people will say, she always brought a smile to my face.
Yeah.
Or, she really helped me through a dark time. or help me find my purpose. So those are my guidelines for how I live the rest of my life, with kindness, with purpose, with passion, and with love.
I wanted to hear from you that you said the two peaks of your career are 60 and 72. 70. Those
well,
two.
one peak was one day. It was about 1986 or 87. Somebody said, "Put out your hand. I'm putting something in your hand. Tell me what it is. Close your eyes." And I said, "It's buckskin suede." And they said, "No, it's washable silk." And I said, "Don't be stupid. You can't wash silk." They said, "Well, now you can." So I introduced washable silk to America. That was one peak. And the other peak was at 60 with the jean. And then at 72, when I got cancer and I came through cancer, I realized that I truly was built differently internally than most women. And I had taken breast cancer as a challenge and a time of personal growth.
Yeah.
And that was a huge turning point for me in my life.
Yeah.
And I realized that a lot of what I had accomplished was not so much spiritual as it was monetization and recognition of my artistic nature. But I had more to give, much more. And television had shown me that I could speak it and I could write it into books. So I'm probably just about gathering up material for my fourth book, which is about living out the elder years of your life as a female, but with pride and passion and loving yourself and everybody around you, which is not easy.
Guys, it's one thing to listen to the advice that you're hearing in this conversation, but are you taking action on it? We have created a free newsletter that shares the stories, life advice, and actionable strategies to live your most fulfilling life from over 1,257 older people twice a week, every week for free. This newsletter is made for you if you are afraid of growing old and having regrets that you did not live the life that you should have, because you're going to learn decades and decades of real lessons and experiences from those who have been through life and are reflecting on what makes it great. Now, because you're listening to this episode, we are giving away $250 of free bonus self-reflection exercises and masterminds taught by over 1,000 different older, wiser, and successful people. You can join totally for free by clicking the link in our description or scanning the QR code that is on this screen to join today. I want to hear from you. You're saying at 60 and 70, these are some of the best times of your career.
For sure.
Your career started when you were 20.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are my age, so I'm 25 for reference.
Oh my God.
What?
It's so young.
Oh, you're surprised. Okay.
It's hilarious.
Do I look 25?
You look about 30, but I think you try to look a little bit older, but also you're very slick with the microphone. So
some people say 40, and I think that's pushing it.
No.
30 is good.
40.
I'll take 30. Thank you very much. But for people like me who are, I would say I'm like you, but at 25, where I know what I want and I know that I want to be doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are very focused on the instant gratification. If I'm not successful, rich, fast, someone doesn't buy my company right now type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a failure. And your career has been so long.
Yeah.
Can you just tell people the value of playing the long game? I'm assuming that you believe.
Well, there were definitely times when I felt like a swamp person, like I was just mired in this swamp. I got on tele-retail. It was not a totally respected commercialization of fashion, and I always thought I was in the backwaters of fashion. And frankly, at 60 years old, nobody in fashion or television suddenly became a success. But I would say that also taught me a huge lesson. And the lesson was, do not calendar your life. Do not assume that you are as powerful as fate or destiny, and you are going to decide when you are going to be famous. And there was something very extraordinary and sweet about suddenly becoming this huge success at 60. And that meant I could carry that success well into my 70s and even into my 80s. And is it better to be a success in your youth and have that all forgotten and distant by the time you get to late middle age? Or is it better to become successful in middle age and have that fame and recognition and appreciation taken into the more challenging, difficult years of, let's say, 75 and onward? And so I took it from that point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. It's a different version, but I started this when I was 21.
Yeah.
And I had no followers. And I was like, if I don't get 100,000 in a year, then I suck.
Sound like me.
But I
Starting podcasting. Yikes.
But I then thought about it, and I was like, how many 25-year-olds, for example, have 100,000 followers? And I was like, I don't know anybody. And even if I did, like, that would be a really good point, to be 25 and have 100,000. And I had 0 at 21. So I'm like, what if I don't give myself any slack and just do it and see what happens? And if I get to be 25 and I achieve that goal, so be it. Like, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I'm 25 now, and we
Are
have
you happy?
yeah, very. But I didn't need the followers to be happy, I don't think. But now we have 1 million. So.
I needed
You needed them?
I needed the success.
No, I agree.
And I needed it also because growing older for females is so tough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a reaffirmation also that it wasn't like you lost your power at 50 or 55. It was just a recognition that something great could happen to you at any moment in your life. So the minute you don't believe in it and you cut it off, you lost that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And at 60, I didn't know anybody in the fashion industry anymore. Everybody had died off, retired, lost their company, lost their interest. And here I was, and I was still going. I've had so many adventures since then, met so many incredible people and celebrities and offshoots, and yeah, amazing.
So you were married, you were saying?
I lived with somebody for 20 years. Yeah.
Not married.
Not married. Never wanted to be married. Never had any
But this is your life
interest
partner.
in family, yeah. And I was with him 20 years. 10 good years and 10 really challenging years with cancer. At a time, he passed in 1997, so at a time when they didn't know anything about cancer. Mm-hmm. It was just impossible. Mm-hmm. So my view of cancer was, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. And I had to go through it and face it alone.
Yeah.
And I did it. And that changes your makeup too.
And you loved him?
Oh, yeah, I idolized him. Yeah, that was a person that I always said when I met him, I was somebody wandering through the desert, dying of thirst, and he was the long, cool water. He was the long, cool drink of water. Yep.
How did you know that? What was the initial feeling?
Just nobody understood me. I mean, I wasn't a woman of my times. You know, women of my times that were born in the 40s, you had a prescribed life. You weren't going to work. There were no jobs for women. Oh, yeah. At a certain point, my parents forced me in high school. There was a extra class you could take in high school to become a secretary. So it was a typing class. That was like my ambition. He got it all. He saw my talent. And he was willing to be the man behind the throne. Usually it's a woman behind the throne for the king. Mm-hmm. But he got it. He always used to say, I was a thoroughbred. I just needed to find the right racetrack. He got it. He propelled me. He prepared me. And I was devastated when I lost him.
Can you define the word love for me?
I think for me, it's not so much romantic as it is tapping into one another's power and sharing that and working with that and igniting it. He was just a very powerful personality, and I always gave him all the credit in the world for giving me the stamina to keep on keeping on until it happened at 60 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're looking back on your life, what is a big mistake that you've made or a big regret that you have that taught you a valuable lesson?
I don't have many regrets. I think that's stupid. I think you waste your time. I am not a coulda, woulda, shoulda kind of girl. I wish things had been more supportive with my family. I think my life would have been different, but I obviously was not able to choose that. And so what I did instead was I treated my talent with great reverence, and I treated my talent as if it was a living, breathing thing and was my child. And I loved it, and I still do. And I feel that the lucky thing for me at 60 and then again at 72 when I got cancer and really had to be very introspective, I realized I had other talents, and I wanted to start cherishing them. So, rebirth. For me, I believe you rebirth new opportunities and new loves of life until the end of your life. It doesn't just end when you get old.
What is a truth that you have learned about life that you wish more people understood?
You know, there's an old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. I think that we've got a society today that believes it's owed something and doesn't want to work that hard. And for me, work was always a privilege because everybody wanted me to get married and live a life I didn't want to live. And so I think find something you love to do and love your life every minute. And that means if you have to work in a bank, but you really love to bake and you come home on weekends and you make the best chocolate chip cookie in town and you sell it at flea markets, do it. But find something that you can develop within yourself that not only you really love, but gives you a tremendous sense of self-worth. Yeah.
A lot of people that I've come across, anytime I interview someone successful or I talk about successes that I've created, there's always like a couple of comments of you're lucky, you're just lucky. But it takes a lot of work to be able to be, so to speak, lucky.
Oh yeah, or stay in one place long enough. You know, like I stayed on tele-retail and in fashion long enough to have luck happen to me. It was just my time. You know, it's like doing the slots in Las Vegas, and you've done them for 20 years, and one day you hit the giant jackpot. That's what it was like for me.
Yeah. So we've spoken to 1,200 plus people over the last few years, and the premise is what makes a great life. So this is a loaded question, but in your opinion, if you had to boil it down to a simple science, what makes a great life?
Follow your dreams. Believe in your dreams. Believe they can come true. And follow your dreams. I remember as a little kid, I used to watch my parents and their big thrill on weekends. was cutting coupons out of the latest supermarket newspaper and going and, buying a 12-pack of Coke at $1 off. And I thought, I will never fucking be that person. I want every minute to count. I want so many adventures. And I'm willing to go to the edge with a lot of them. But I remember as a kid thinking, I want an extraordinary life, not an ordinary life. And that was my mantra all my life.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dad.
Pleasure.